Good morning, guys. Monster Mechanic here. So we're working on a F450 Super Duty. Has a 6.7 power stroke in it. It's a 2014. We have a no start issue. So went through, we checked the starter relay, we checked battery voltage, ignition, got down to where we manually jumped the starter. When you manually jump the starter, it's only clicking. Before we go and pull the starter off, went ahead and took a multimeter and we checked voltage at the starter. By doing that, we took the positive lead on the multimeter to the positive cable coming from the battery. And then we grounded the multimeter out to the starter body. So that way we know the starter, if we're getting ground from the starter has to have ground. So we had battery voltage, plus or minus 1 volt. You usually should be okay. After that, I went ahead and I hooked up a little jumper lead so I can hook up a test light to the starter on the signal wire, so that way I can run this test light into the truck so I can see when I hit the key that there was power going to it. And by I mean the signal wire. So you see that you got the big stud there, and then you got the little stud below it. That little stud is your signal wire. So we got power on both those wires. So next, to do this starter, it is a pain in the butt, guys. I mean, it's not really that bad if you know what you're doing. So that's why we're gonna go ahead and make a video on it. So first, go ahead and disconnect your positive wire and your signal wire. Next, you guys see that's a block heater right there. You're gonna wanna go ahead and unplug that block heater. Let me, one sec, let me get a flashlight. All right, so as you guys see, there's that block heater right there. Let me turn my flashlight down a little bit so it ain't so blinding for you guys. Right behind that wire, you guys can see that top bolt. Make it easy to get that top bolt, you're gonna wanna go ahead and unplug that wire. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. All right, first off, do not pull it by the wire. You can already see where somebody already pulled this thing by the wire. And see what they did? They damaged the wire, which really ain't bad, just the coating over the top of the wire. But make sure you guys grab it by this right here. This little piece right here that's moving, that right there, as you see, got fingers on it and it holds into the threads of the block heater. Grab it by that and pull it straight out. Do not twist it because it is a 2-terminal. If you twist it, you'll break off the prongs inside the block heater. And then you gotta drain all the coolant out to change that damn thing. Here in Florida, I don't think it really matters about having a block heater. So anyway, now you guys can see that top bolt. And you're gonna wanna use a 13mm wrench, all 3 bolts. It's 3 bolts holding this thing in. You're gonna wanna use a 13mm to get that bolt out. Best thing to do is use a wrench through the fender well. Then you crawl underneath here. You got a bolt right there, that bolt right there. And then try to get my flashlight set up here for you. All right, so you got a bolt right here, and then right here on the back side. This bolt goes through the bell housing into the starter. Then you got one that comes through the starter into the bell housing. All 3 13mm. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get these unbolted so we can go on to the next step. All right, guys. So we got all the bolts out. These starters are a pain in the butt to get out if you don't really understand how to get it out, because you only got maybe that much room between the back of the starter and the motor mount. Before you go jacking your engine up, removing your motor mount, or some people might even think going through the extreme of pulling their transmission back, stop. You do not have to. And mind you, this goes for the F250s, F350s. If it has a 6.7 power stroke, it's going to be pretty well identical, no matter if it's a 450, 250, or 350. All you got to do is make sure you take your wires off. That's why I do it first. It's easier to get them off while it's bolted in anyway. Take out your 3 bolts, and then you're going to want to rotate your starter. See if I can't get my hand up there. It's kind of hard. When I get to the clock position, I will let you guys know I can't hold the phone and do the same thing. Do it all at once. I'll try it, but no, I ain't gonna be able to do it. Let me flip around here, see if I can do it while holding the phone. Yeah, it's just not possible, guys. So give me one moment. I'm gonna get to the clock position that you're gonna need, and you'll see that it'll come straight out. All right, that took both hands. So the solenoid, as you guys can see right here is a solenoid. That is normally facing straight up and down. So that's gonna be on the top part of the starter. So when you get your bolts out, you gotta let the butt fall down on the starter, so that way it gives you a little more room, but you're gonna rotate that solenoid down. And if you guys see, you guys can see where the cone's out. As when you rotate it and you let the butt of the starter fall, when you gotta kind of jiggle it. Don't get me wrong, it's not just, oh, rotate it, comes out. You're gonna have to give it a little bit of a jiggle. As you're rotating it and you jiggle it kind of out, you're gonna see that that nose cone pops out. So then you're gonna want to come back around up here to the fender well. Some guys already, we usually take out the whole fender well, but somebody already did this. I don't recommend doing that because then it just does that. Don't recommend it. Take out your fender well, don't cut it. But somebody already did this to this truck, so I'm not spending the extra time. Reach in there, grab your starter, and you're gonna slide it out. Again, you gotta give me a second, I gotta set this phone down. All right, so as you guys see, get it through there, pull her on out, and just remember one thing. When you're going back together, make sure when you're putting the starter in through the fender well, you're going butt first. It needs to go butt first, not head first. Y'all know what I mean? Because when you put it back in there, it got to go in and turn and sit down in there. And this is how the starter normally works. So let's get over to the, so real quick, this is how the starter, move this out of the way. This is how the starter's sitting in the truck when it's mounted. You need to rotate it this way down to the bottom, and as you're doing that, it's going to cock like this. There we go. It's going to be cocked, and you're going to pop it out of there and bring it out. When you go back in, you're going to go back in, same location, and then rotate it up and in. All right. So for some reason this starter didn't work, so I want to bench test this starter. I'll be right back with you guys. All right, see if I can prop this up where you guys can see here. Maybe. I can't tell, I can't see the phone screen. All right, we'll switch. Don't worry about my face. I know I'm not pretty, okay? Anyhow, forget it. I ain't propping it up. So when you set your guys, when you're bench testing a starter, normally you want to put it in a vise. I don't have a vise on my truck. Positive to the positive negative cable. I like to put it on the actual negative tip post for the solenoid instead of the body, just so that way I know it's getting good ground. Then don't arc it with a screwdriver. You can, but don't do it. Get you a starter button. Get my rubber band off here. It got 2 ends on it and a little button. You can get them from most tool companies have them. Matco, Mac, Snap-on, they all got them. Depends on who you like, you know, what flavor cookie you like. So you're gonna take one, you're gonna hook it up on here. I don't care. We'll just set it on there somehow. Should be able to give it power. And you're gonna hook the other one on your signal wire. Now here's where I gotta put the phone down. Because now you see the light on the yeah, I don't know if you can see the light, but it lights up when you got power. There you go, you can see that light right there. All right, give me one moment. All right, so I know it's not gonna take off on me. So as you guys can see, this is what happens with it. When you hear that click right there, what's happening is the Bendix is engaging. And the reason why it's continually clicking like that, woo, we're smoking it. The reason why it's continually clicking like that is because what's happening is in the truck, when this Bendix right here engages, it's engaged to your flywheel. So it's not able to sit there and keep clicking. It's going to engage, it's going to try to turn. So when you guys hear that click, that right there, that's all that's happening. That starter motor should be turning. So let's go ahead and we're going to swap over to the good starter and see what does. All right, next little quick lesson, guys. Before you guys go throwing the new starter in, match them up. Because one, yeah, the starter could look the same, but you know, obviously make sure they're identical starters, but match it up at the mating surface where it mates to the truck. Because if this right here is thicker, then it's not going to engage to the flywheel the same. If it's thinner, it's going to be meshed too hard and it may bind it up and not allow it to start. So always make sure your mating surface to the engine is always identical thicknesses. Because if this is too thin, you're going to have to shim the starter out so it's not too tight into the flywheel. And if it's too thick, well, if it's too thick and it's not meshing correctly and it's not going deep enough into the flywheel, you're going to shear these teeth off right here. Now, I can't really see if I'm hitting the right location thanks to the sunlight, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I am. These teeth right here, if you're not deep enough into the flywheel, you're going to shear the tip of these teeth off, and then you're not going to do nothing. Or instead of shearing these teeth off, you're going to shear a tooth off on your flywheel. That means then you got to pull the transmission and you got to replace your flywheel, and that gets you pretty costly. You don't want to do that. So always match up and make sure everything's identical. Peel all your papers off. You don't want to catch nothing on fire. We're going to go ahead and get this one set up for bench test and make sure it works, as I'm not going through another new starter. All right, so got it all set up for bench test real quick. I'm just going to do a quick bump because it's going to move and I can't hold both. As y'all see, that one works. Always bench test your starters, and I'm going to tell you why. Because see, that starter right here, this is a brand new starter. I just put that in, and it was raining, so I didn't bench test. Give me 1 second here, guys. It was raining and I didn't bench test it. I just threw it in there. Why? Because again, it was raining and it was brand new. So I got this brand new starter put in and all it did was click. So a lot of people, they'd be like, oh man, what else is wrong? Something else is wrong. It's not the starter. Don't think that every brand new part is good. Always bench test. So that's why we just bench test this one, because it's not raining and I don't feel like rushing anything. We're at this one now. As you saw, this one was just clicking. It wasn't doing nothing. This one actually engages and spins. So this one's a good starter. We're gonna go ahead and get this one installed, guys. Just remember, follow the same steps going back together as you did coming apart. Butt in first, clock it, rotate it up, get it in the hole, bolt it down. Make sure when you set it in there, you set it in flush with your hand, and don't pull it in with bolts. That's how it gets cockeyed. Set it in there, equally tighten up the bolts so it sets in flush. Put in your wires, hook your battery terminals back up. That's another key thing. Disconnect your batteries before you do this. There ain't no reason to start arcing and blowing fuses. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time. Have a good evening.